and see what happens. But it seems like we are moving closer and closer to hearing Donald Trump speak. We talked a little bit about Hillary Clinton, about what she will need to do tomorrow. Izzy, do you think we hear tonight from Donald Trump?
I'm sure he will say something. I'm not sure it's the right thing to be saying. I think right now he should go out there, lead with something positive, keep it short, and let Hillary defend what she needs to defend, and then give the victory speech that he has to give.
You know, there's something that strikes me watching Ryan outside in New York City, knowing that Hillary Clinton, watched this at the Peninsula Hotel, knowing that Donald Trump watched this at Trump Towers. Do you remember when we were in a primary, we were talking about New York values? And now both of the top contenders for this presidency are not only New Yorkers, but they are watching these returns in New York. This is going down in New York. What a historic moment happening in such a small and dense part of town. And how do the people who elected Donald Trump, who may have elected Donald Trump, how do they watch this and make sense of it?
Well, most people in New York didn't vote for Donald Trump, so they're elsewhere. So let's get real. I think there's this hunger, and it's being fueled, and we're at this place now where we are going to accept this. And I do believe what you're saying is accurate. Hillary needs to come out, unify the country, and Trump needs to align himself with smart people that can actually rein him in, which, to everybody's point here, I don't know if that's really.
And let me give you two pieces of information that we now have that we did not have earlier. Sean Spicer at the RNC has just tweeted that Donald Trump will be taking the stage tonight. Also, earlier, it was believed that the White House would be issuing a statement on this election. They have since changed that plan. They will not be issuing a statement this evening. Mark, you were shaking your head as though that is just basic protocol.
Yeah, I think they're not going to get out in front of the Clinton campaign.
Yeah, right. Follow their lead. Absolutely. Lauren, what do you want to hear tonight from your candidate?
You know what? I hope that he keeps it short and sweet. That's what I'm looking for. Thank the supporters, thank everyone who did the hard work to get him elected, and then talk to the people who didn't work to get him elected, the people who didn't vote for him, and say, you know what, I'm your president too. Leave it at that. I think that there's enough going on, there's enough in this news cycle. He won, he's the winner, he can be classy about it, and then you can talk about and be braggadocious about it later on. You can get on Twitter tomorrow morning, but I think at this point, you keep it short, you keep it sweet, and quite frankly, I think Kellyanne Conway, his campaign manager, has done a very good job keeping Trump on message and doing these types of tactical moves. So when we've been talking about, does Trump even have a speech to accept the...
You mean in the last week or so?
Yeah. I think it's been... Now it's been a wave.
I do have a question for you, Mark Beatty, since you brought up 2004. I mean, if we used that as the model, right? Mm-hmm. When then is it appropriate? Should Donald Trump give an acceptance speech without a concession speech from Hillary Clinton?
That's a good question. In 2004, I saw it on the Democratic side. I was at the rally, and so Edwards gave a very brief speech that said, hey, don't stand outside all night. We're going to wake up and see where we're at in the morning, and then Kerry gave his concession in the morning. My sense is Trump won't give his full speech until tomorrow, in part because it is so late, people aren't watching. And so my guess is he'll wait for the Clinton campaign, but at the same time, I'm sure that he will strike a confident tone and talk about what this election means or what he thinks this election means.
Can someone in the control room pull for me 2004, what the timing was of those speeches, just because I do think Mark brings up an interesting point, which is it is perhaps the closest historic example we have. You know, Rashad, I keep watching this and thinking about 2000 in the way that I was 17 years old. I was not old enough to vote. And to watch, you know, clearly very nerdy 17-year-olds, watching the results roll in, there was this feeling of like, wow, I missed a chance to participate in my democracy just by a year, right? Like I could have had this ended, and it created much more interest then when 2004 rolled around, when 2008 would roll around, because 2000, for those of us who came of age around that time, really gave us a sense of how every vote is precious. Regardless of which side of that debate you were on, right? Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you really got this sense that one vote could make a tremendous difference. And I wonder for young people watching tonight, if there is a similar sense that your vote does matter, or if this actually moves people in the opposite direction.
Well, I think it's going to be how the pageantry of this all plays out. Part of the one vote matters was it came down to this singular state, and it came down to a certain amount of votes, and we watched that play out for weeks with hanging chads and people counting votes, and so you got this sort of idea that it was that close and that it mattered. And so from what we're seeing here, it may not actually come down to that. It may be much different. And so given the ways in which we'll have to check on the exit polling and see where different demographics fell out, this could be very demoralizing, I think, for a whole group and a whole swath of Americans who are coming of age in a much more diverse America, access to more information, or much more plugged in and connected with people who may not think like them or may not come from the same background. And I think it may be very surprising for young people who have come of age only really knowing Barack Obama as president, knowing and having gay and lesbian, bisexual and transgender friends, knowing people who come from different countries and speak multiple languages. And so it will be interesting, but I do think that once again this represents real fault lines in our country and real fault lines in our democracy. And I think while, yes, Donald Trump won, while Donald Trump may have won the Electoral College and Hillary Clinton may have won the popular vote, I think that the real surprise that's going to come from so many people that that people would have went and voted for Donald Trump, the shock that people are going to have represents how disconnected we are from one another also, and how in silos we are.
There's this tweet from Kellyanne Conway, and this came out at 10:30 at night, so this was before they really had a sense of how the night was going to go, and she was tweeting things that were true. Undercover Trump vote, Mike Pence for VP, Hillary's floor and ceiling are the same. Rally crowds matter. We expanded the map. And in response to that, Crystal Lizzo over at the Washington Post retweeted it and said, so yes, there was a silent Donald Trump vote, a big one. And Kellyanne then retweeted 100%. And that is one of the big stories.
Yeah, well, America still has more white people than anybody else. I mean, look, one of the things that's very key to me when I look at these sort of outcomes demographically, and I have people texting me, oh gosh, well these people. I was like, look. If you look at the actual demographics of this country and where they're spread out, every single black, brown, and tan person in the country could have voted for Hillary Clinton, and she wouldn't have necessarily won because it's still a majority white country. And you had someone who ran as a very specific white, ethnocentric nationalist candidate, and he won. So, and I'll say this, I mentioned this before, there's a difference between Hillary Clinton lost and Donald Trump won it. I don't really care what Kellyanne has to say because she didn't even like this guy 6 months ago. Like, the Republicans are shocked that he won. And I think part of what's going to be happening tomorrow morning is everybody's going to wake up and say, wait, we won? Now what do we do? Right? It's what was it? The old film, The Candidate from like 1972, where the guy wins in the end, and the end of the movie is just like, what do I do now? There is a real what do I do now moment that's going to be happening in the Trump administration in his hotel right now. And I will be very curious to see how they manage that. And how he deals with the fact that his election has led to a global economic downturn.
This is also going to be a really strange map when we look back at the results. We're going to end up losing Ohio. Democrats are going to end up losing Ohio and Iowa by about the same margin as Texas, 9 points. And we're going to be significantly closer in places like Arizona and Georgia and North Carolina than places like Ohio and Iowa. We're going to win the popular vote. And what it really looks like is that Clinton had the same margins as Obama in urban and suburban areas, but just got trounced in manufacturing areas. And so I think that has real implications for what the map looks like in the future and for how we continue going about building the coalition.
I just have to imagine, though, that then one of the questions tomorrow is, and how did they miss that?
But I mean, here's the thing. So, Barack Obama, the candidate, the president that you favored, he's gone out and stumped on the fact that he brought manufacturing back to America. And so in some ways, Hillary Clinton just needed to ride that wave But it didn't work out because obviously in the Rust Belt, in the Midwest, people are hurting and they didn't believe what Barack Obama had to offer.
Well, we
So-
keep
All right, guys, I have to break in because we have some news. The Associated Press is declaring Donald Trump the 45th president of the United States.